Hello and welcome back to Speakerstack Music. So this is video 4 in a series of videos where I'm breaking down how I've created an electro rock song in Ableton 12. The electro rock song is called Jungle Shaker. There'll be a link to it at the end of this video if you want to check out what it sounds like. There'll also be a link to a playlist where you can check out the other videos in this series where I break down how I've created the other instruments in this song. Yeah, so this is video 4, and in video 4 we're going to look at the distorted mid pad, which is on instrument channel 12 here. I'm going to stop talking for a second and give you a quick audition of what that mid pad sounds like in the context of the song, and then I'm going to solo the channel so you can actually just hear the instrument itself. Cool, okay, so let's break down how we created it. So the first thing I've done with this is I have set up a group channel here for the mids, and I've dropped in the mid pad and the sequences, and I really just wanted to organize the sounds that I wanted to put in the mid frequency ranges in the song under a single group channel here, and you can group them by clicking on the right button on your mouse and then going group tracks, and it just means that then you can drop other tracks into that and group them together. And then you can apply kind of global parameters to all the different instrument channels that you have selected and grouped under that group track. I haven't got anything on these mid channels. If you just click on here, you'll see there's nothing there at the moment. I potentially could have added some global effects across these three instruments here that are in kind of grey, but it sounded okay, so I didn't. But actually, it's still a really good habit to get into, just to group tracks together, even if you can kind of structure it in your own mind there as you're creating the song. That's the first thing. Second thing is you're going to need to drop in an instrument that's going to drive the sound for this sound that you're creating, this instrument that you're creating in the song. And I've used an analog synthesizer. This is a synthesizer that's included as part of Ableton's Suite version, and you find it by going to the browser up here. So if you click on this button up here, you can go into the browser, and then if you go to the instrument selection and then click and drag on analog, you can drag in an analog synthesizer template. So do that rather than clicking on the arrow here and going into one of the presets. You might find a preset that's cool, but I like to actually drop the template in and play around with that. So that's what I've done on this occasion. So you literally just click and drag it in there, and then you get something like this. And I've also added a couple of effects as well, which I'll come to in a second. A mid-range fattener to fill out and fatten up the sound, and an EQ8, because I needed to be quite careful about where I placed the synth amongst all the other instruments that we've got going on in this track, and I'll tell you why about that in a second. So, the analog synthesizer. So what I've done with that is, essentially the analog instrument is, well, it emulates a wavetable synthesizer. So you've got oscillators here, you've got filters in this section here, you've got the amp section here where you can increase the decibel range and pan it. You've got an LFO section here which you might want to use, but I haven't got that engaged for this song. And then you've got some global parameters at the end here, such as volume, vibrato, unison, which is essentially like a way of making the sound more polyphonic, and then a glide here, which essentially gives it a legato, morphing the notes together and just giving it a bit more of an effect there. So I've got both oscillators on. I've got them both dropped an octave. I've got a sine wave shape here, which is this kind of rolling, kind of hilly kind of line, squiggly line. And then I've got a sawtooth oscillator here, which is more of a kind of a jagged shape down here. I've only got the top filter on, set to LP24. I've got the frequency set at around 800 and the resonance set at around 44%, but you'll see that there are little red dots on both those parameters. and those red dots signify that I've added some automation to the song, and I'll come to the instrument, and I'll come to that in a second. And then, as I said, I've got the vibrato set at 9%, the unison set at around 10, and the glide set at around 50. Then, in terms of the mid-range fattener, this is an effect that you can use to kind of boost the decibel levels and just fatten out the sound. And again, you can find it by going to Audio Effects and then scrolling down, going to the Saturator tab here, and then finding mid-range fattener and just dropping that in. Now, I haven't actually done much to this. I've just increased the dry-wet parameter to around 80%, which you can see here. But everything else is as it would be if you just click and kind of drop that in, basically. And then finally, I've added an EQ8 because I want to position this sound in the mid-frequency ranges. So I've used an EQ8 with a low-cut high-pass filter set at around 250 Hz, a dip at around 1000 Hz, and then a high-cut low-pass filter set at around 9000 Hz, which you can see here. And you can do that using these parameters down here. So this symbol here is your high-pass low-cut filter, and this symbol here is your high-cut low-pass filter. And what they essentially mean is that all the frequencies either side of these are cut out of the song. Okay. I've also got a slight dip in the frequency ranges at around 1000 Hz because there's a lot of other instrumentation going on around that level, and I didn't want it to dominate that kind of frequency range. So I've reduced the decibels and dropped them down to about -6 around the 1000 Hz part of the song. So I'm just going to show you why I've kind of got it set around those levels. With this, I needed to be cautious of the fact that there's a bass synthesizer down here, and then there's also some kind of high pads, a lot of high pads up here in this area here. So I didn't want this mid-range distorted pad really to go into the upper ranges. I wanted it to kind of have its own position in the song. So, and if I show you what difference it makes moving these, you'll kind of see what I was getting at in terms of positioning where it was. So I'm just going to play it again. So I don't know if that came across in the video, but if you click and drag this parameter down more towards the 100 Hz range, you could probably sense and hear that it was sounding quite boomy. We've already got the bass quite prominent down there. I mean, there's a boost here at around 6 decibels at minus kind of 50 Hz. Well, at 50 Hz rather than minus 50 Hz, 50 Hz, but you can see it's still quite prominent around 100 Hz. So if you've got it kind of that pad around here, it's going to interfere with the bass sound. So that's what I was trying to avoid. I wanted to give the bass some space in the mix, which is why I put the mid pad around here at about 250 Hz. And then again with these kind of high frequencies here, you couldn't really tell a huge amount of difference because actually with the audio up here, I don't know if you saw, but if I play you the audio, you get a kind of a mountain range appearing behind. Let's just do that again so you can hear it, see it rather. So there's the mountain range. You can see it's just kind of curving off at around 10,000 Hz. So there's not a lot of the sound from the distorted mid pad in this section here, but you are going to pick up some kind of white noise and extra kind of frequencies that you just don't want. So I've cut them out. So I'm just going to edit and undo that. And that was the kind of the rationale for why I did the EQ in that kind of zone there. And then finally, we were going to have a look at the automation. So there's 3 elements to the automation that I've got going on in the song. So in order to automate, and what we mean by automation is that we're varying a parameter. So it could either be the volume or it could be the frequency on the filter, or it could be the resonance. And those are the three things that I've got here. So you can see that this is the decibels here. It's at -1 at the moment, but the red dot here shows you that I've automated the volume at some point in the song. And then, as I said earlier, the two red dots here on the frequency and the resonance in the filter mean that I've automated the frequency and the resonance on the instrument as well. And you can see what I've done if you go to the automation symbol here. I'm just going to close that down and then bring that down. And you can, if you go into this, you can select, these dots here tell you what's automated. So they tell you that the analog's automated, but then you have to kind of decide, well, you have to kind of find out what's automated. So on the analog, you'll see that we've got the F1 frequency and F1 resonance automated. So if I select the frequency first of all, just close that down so you can see that I've drawn in some lines here, and these lines essentially tell the song how to automate the frequency, moving between roughly around 3000 Hertz and around 834 Hertz, okay? And that's throughout the song. There are sections where I've dropped it off, but it kind of morphs and phases through as you're going along. And then the resonance, that's a bit more nuanced, and I kind of felt my way through that really. And I think this is something that you could do with a song. Just play it live. So kind of blast the song out, play the instrument with the song, and then record while you're actually playing the song back. But actually go into the analog instrument and kind of play around with the resonance as it's moving around. You'll actually create a pattern here that you can then go back in and adjust. So I really just wanted to use the resonance to open out the kind of the filtered sound, as opposed to kind of making it more natural and embedding it in kind of the root of the sound. I wanted it to kind of morph and become more ephemeral. So where you can see it increasing to about 53% is where that's happening, and then it's dropping back down, etc., etc. So that's the resonance. And then finally, if I go to the mixer, because the third and final parameter that we've automated is the volume. Now the volume isn't anything to do with the analog, it's to do with the mixer. And again, if you click on this, you can find there's a red dot which will tell you that the track volume has been automated. And what I've done with that is I've got the synth coming in at the start, slowly getting louder and louder until it hits about -1 decibels. So again, I'll just play you the start of the song and you'll hear exactly what I mean by that. Cool, so that's the start of the song. I just wanted that pad creeping in. So I've used this line here, drawn in a dot here, to automate the slow increase of volume. And that just comes in, and then it just auditions for a little bit, and then it all kicks in around the, I think it's around the 23rd bar or something like that. And I was kind of highlighting here that you could see that this parameter was changing as it was coming in, as it was increasing. You could see that this was actually moving upwards to about -1 decibels. And that's the distorted mid pad. So I hope you found that useful. If you found the video helpful, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up and liked it, so that we can push these videos out to more people. And please consider subscribing to the channel. And thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.